Hi, everyone. This is ANC1B's Transportation, Parks, and Public Space July committee meeting. So I'm going to start by taking the roll. So Julius. Great. I saw a hand.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I was on email. My bad.
No problem. Santiago.
Here.
Zoe.
Here.
David is not here yet. Dion is not here yet. Johnny.
Present.
Karen.
Present.
Thank you. Looks like Matthew Rust is not here yet. Nicole.
Here.
Great. Lara.
Present.
Thank you. Guneef.
Here.
Great. Rebecca. No Rebecca. Ben.
Here.
Great. Jay.
Present.
Great. And then Nick told me he was not going to make it. So that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. So that is a quorum out of our 15. Great. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I'm going to share my screen real quick so we can just see the agenda. Cool. Can everybody see that? Great. So we have 4 items on the agenda today. An 11th Street bike lane update from DDOT, and I believe our DDOT project manager, Christopher Berg, is in the audience, so we'll speak with him in a second. A discussion on Harrison Recreation Center that Guneev is going to lead. This was his topic he wanted to bring up. Then a discussion on vehicle registration fees. This is a topic Johnny wanted to bring up, so he'll be leading that discussion. And then we also received a notice of intent 25179 TPA, the installation of reserved residential parking space for a disabled resident on an address I do not remember. So at some point in the meeting, I will look that up and we will discuss the specific address. I'd like to move to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt.
I had one other possible resolution I wanted to bring up about I think Francois, the ANC1B, he might have mentioned it was about the speed bumps versus speed cushions for just I mean I can share the resolution, but just having DDOT look into the practicality of that.
Oh, okay. So you've prepared a resolution?
I have
right?
prepared a resolution, correct?
Okay. I knew you guys were going to talk about it, but I didn't know the timeline for that.
We could talk about it next time. There's a miscommunication where we both thought the other one had talked to you about this. So
I just knew that you guys were talking about it. I didn't know when. Maybe we could play it by ear and see what time it is if we want to get into it, or we could put it on August. I can add it real quick.
yeah, let's play it by ear. If there's time at the end, we can talk about it, and if not, I don't want to make everyone talk about speed bumps for like an hour.
Okay. So I'm just gonna write potential resolution on bike friendly speed humps. Does that capture it? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Okay. So motion to adopt the amended agenda.
I made the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Karen, and thanks, Jay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Great. Thank you. Adopted agenda. Okay, great. So our first item is an update from DDOT on the 11th Street bike lane. We've talked about this before at the committee, especially in previous sessions. There's been previous resolutions about it, and this has been a project in the works for a while. So I'm excited to hear the update. So Chris, I'm going to promote you. Christopher, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. See if that worked. Great. So I think we can just get right into it. Christopher, if you have a presentation or anything, or what are we going to do?
Sorry, my computer is just getting up to speed here as you upgraded my my status. Can you all hear me okay? I see a little bit of lag on my screen.
No problem.
Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a quick presentation. I appreciate your inviting me to present to the Transportation Committee. I know 1B in particular has been very active in advocating for this project for a long time and discussing the various merits of the concepts. I'm excited that we have some direction moving forward. I'm gonna make a couple tweaks here. 1 second here, and give me 1 second, and I'll share my screen and I'll show you. And I'll present a quick PowerPoint slide here. Bear with me. Okay, let's see. I think it's on a little bit of a lag. I hope everyone's staying safe from the inclement weather that we have going on outside. It's quite the light show that we're experiencing. Okay, quick confirmation. Can everyone see the screen that I'm presenting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, thanks everyone so much. It's been a few months since we've spoken. In fact, I don't think I've presented to ANC1B since the end of last year. Part of the reason was for that there was kind of some feedback from members of the community, and some requests to the mayor's office to discuss this project, or a couple of these projects. And some scheduling delays kind of delayed a site walk along with the mayor. And thank you to some of you who attended along with me and other members of DDOT and from the mayor's office in March. But I'm excited to present kind of our path forward on the 11th Street bike lane project, as well as the Vermont Avenue Northwest bike lane project, both projects of which are squarely in ANC1B. This presentation today is just going to be kind of reviewing what those selected concepts are and what we are going to move into design with. And happy to take questions at the end. Again, we have a long corridor here. This project has many different segments. Just to point out here, south of my cursor here is 11th Street from Pennsylvania Avenue to L Street, which used to be a conventional bike lane. Last year, those bike lanes were converted to curbside protected bike lanes. And the goal of this project has always been to improve the bicycle facility along 11th all the way up through Columbia Heights. The segments that I'm going to be discussing today are the ones that are kind of highlighted here. This orange stretch, Vermont Avenue to Florida Avenue, that is squarely in ANC1B, as well as the Vermont Avenue Northwest segment between 11th Street and Florida Avenue. And then just because your neighbors to the south and its proximity to your ANC. I'll just provide a quick update on 11th Street, the segment between Q to S. I'll kind of discuss the concepts and then give a quick kind of update on our timelines and kind of where we stand now with each segment. Okay, first of all, this is the kind of the most contentious, trickiest segment of this project, the 5-block segment between Vermont Avenue and Florida Avenue Northwest. We kicked around a few concepts. The concept that was preferred by ANC1B and that passed unanimously was to do a one-way conversion of 11th Street and to include or install curbside protected bike lanes in both directions. And that would necessitate removing half of the parking, so removing parking access for one side of the street. The concept that we have the okay from DDOT leadership to proceed with is the one that follows. You are looking at a similar configuration in that we're going to do a one-way conversion, and that one-way southbound vehicle traffic, the removal of the northbound lane gives us the space to upgrade what's currently just Sharrows to a standard southbound bike lane that will be alongside the southbound travel lane. And in the northbound lane, we will have a contraflow bike lane, which again, we have contraflows around the city. It provides space for northbound traffic to northbound bicycle traffic to have space that's separated from a vehicle lane. However, the caveat there is that they're going against traffic, and with this configuration, you will have vehicles pulling through the contraflow lane to get to the curbside parking lane, much like you do currently on conventional unprotected bike lanes. This segment will link to, on both ends of it, will connect to curbside protected bike lanes. And I know that one of the large safety concerns that this committee has raised previously in past meetings has been kind of the intersection at 11th and Florida, and how the conversion between a protected facility and an unprotected facility is unsafe. We will do everything in our power to design a safe transition between these two different facility types. And so again, the big kind of trade-off here is that we're losing out on the curbside protected bike lane in order to maintain curbside access for commercial loading zones, for vehicle parking, for pickup drop-off zones. And so instead of losing roughly 60 to 70 parking spaces, those will be maintained, and there will be minimal parking consequences to this. There may be some slight upgrades or some slight enhancements to daylighting at driveways or alleyways, but this is the concept that we have, again, the green light to proceed with. And so I'll move on to the next section, and then I'm sure there'll be questions. Vermont Avenue. One of the big reasons for currently the existing conditions, there are 2 travel lanes in each direction, and there are no bike lanes. And the path we have forward on this is to repurpose one of the general purpose travel lanes and create a pretty wide and buffered bike lane that is not curbside protected. There's lots of evidence that lane rebalancing projects and minimizing or reducing the travel lanes from 2 to 1 in each direction will slow down vehicle traffic and making the corridor safer for all road users, including pedestrians, drivers, and bicyclists. Should help slow speeds, kind of your classic narrow the lanes and make it safer for all road users. And this upgrades our existing kind of roadway conditions for cyclists where there is no bike lane currently to having a buffer bike lane. And again, this will kind of serve as a connection between the 11th Street protected bike lane network and the Florida Avenue Northwest bike lane or protected bike lane. Again, a lot of community input and opinions came in and were factored in this decision. This doesn't preclude us from going back in the future and making adjustments. As we proceed with design, we'll be issuing, like we always do, issuing a notice of intent where there'll be a comment period where the community is welcome to provide their feedback and as well as other public engagement such as meetings like tonight. Just a quick comment here. One of the in ANC2F and 2G, there was some concern about losing the diagonal parking on the segment just south of ANC1B. We looked at different concepts and deemed that there is no safe way to maintain the diagonal parking between Q Street and S Street. And so we are proceeding with a concept that converts the diagonal parking to parallel parking. The anticipated impact of this will actually be minimal. When you looked at the actual numbers of striped parking spaces, it's a little bit hard to tell sometimes because the faded striping on the street, on the pavement. But we've done many audits of this, and between the kind of the net loss will be just about 3 spaces. We're also gaining back some additional space from 2 bus platforms that are going to be, or 2 bus stops that are going to be consolidated. The bus stops, the northbound 11th and R, northbound and southbound stops at 11th and R will be removed. There are now 2 shared bus platforms at Ellen, Rhode Island and Ellen, Vermont. And kind of with the Better Bus Network rollout, we've worked with WMATA and decided that is a preferred path forward there. So I will be doing a more robust round of kind of engagement on what the curbside spaces look like and what kind of parking configuration is optimal for the community. And in that, I will be providing kind of that evidence of where the diagonal parking and the perceived the notion that we're actually going to be losing a lot more spots than we will. I'll make that case with some visual evidence. Let's see if I can get to my next slide here. Such a classic. There it is. Okay. Again, just a little, this is kind of the phases that we're in right now. We have this project kind of chunked up into 5 segments. One of the segments is done. The other 4 are kind of as outlined here. We just got, I'll kind of start south to north. We just got preliminary design plans for L to Rhode Island, and we're going to be doing a review of those plans tomorrow. One caveat here is that there are a lot of shared bus platforms that require some pretty in-depth surveying and design work. Our multimodal design division will get going on that once we do this initial review tomorrow, and once the DDOT team provides comments, so that should help kind of speed the process along. But there are, again, a lot of stops that need to be designed. So our original thought is that, we're looking at 2026 for installation on this segment. The Rhode Island to Vermont, this segment, it's Q to S as I just presented it. We are at 65% plans. That is kind of the best chance that we have to get, again, no promises, but design is moving along. It's just a couple of blocks between two intersection projects that were installed last year. So we're hoping that we can upgrade upgrade that segment to the curbside protected bike lanes this year, hopefully by late summer, more likely early fall. Vermont Avenue to Florida, we just changed the concept. So we are technically in planning phases, but we are proceeding with design. It is a kind of a quick build project now that shouldn't require many complications when it comes to design. So my goal, and again, I don't want to overpromise this, but my goal is that we advance the Vermont Ave to Florida Ave design as quickly as possible. Get feedback from the public, and hopefully we can kind of catch up that segment to the segment further south from Q to S. And my personal goal would be to get those constructed this year. And then come in ready with design plans for the northern and southern segments that, again, have a lot more shared bus platforms. So the Florida Avenue to Monroe Street segment, again, we have a lot of width there, and so it's just about getting the preliminary designs drawn up and going through the design review phases. And getting the bus platform surveys completed. So that's where we are with this project. Again, one caveat here that I want to say is, this is a very long corridor, and we want to make sure that we set ourselves up for success now that we have a path forward to get this project constructed. Our goals kind of internally are to not to have 4 separate kind of mini projects within this larger project, but to maybe restrict it to maybe 2 phases. Again, that is why I'm pushing to try to advance from Rhode Island Avenue up to Florida Avenue, and try to get that kind of built in one season, so that it's not seen or it's not confusing to the public about what what this bike infrastructure is. And we want to make the clear case that it's part of this cohesive 11th Street corridor project that we have a set timeline for. So I'll stop there and see if the committee has questions.
Great, thanks, Chris, for the presentation. So I know you said kind of 2 phases ideally. And then the goal for the main part that goes through 1B would be to be constructed by the end of the year. Do you have any kind of like notionally when a notice of intent would come out?
Yeah, so typically that would be around a 65% plan. Again, I think it's the design is not overly complicated. There aren't complicated bus platform needs along that segment. So I think our design team is working on the first draft, and we're hoping to get that, I think, sometime late this month or early next. And then we'll have to do a transportation plan review internally at DDOT and provide comments back. They'll then draft the 30% and 65% plans. We'll NOI it. So I think if we work really quickly, we can potentially get it in late this year, especially if we have a mild start to to the winter season. Yeah, that would be my goal, to have an NOI released this fall and get comments from the public so we can proceed to construction.
Okay, great. Ben, I see your hand first. Did you lower your hand? What happened?
Yeah, hi, Chris. Thanks for the presentation, and thanks for all the work that went into the presentation. Two questions. First, yeah, as a resident of 11th Street, this section, yeah, I'm a little disappointed to not see protected lanes. One thing that might be worth considering is protected lanes in some segment of it. At the north end of it, where there's one block where nobody lives there. It's Howard's Physical Plant Building, and it might be worth considering a different layout for that block. It's a long block. It's a lot of actual street, and you know, we discussed this sort of transition at the base of the hill across Florida. It might be nice to consider bringing the protected lanes across Florida along that one block, and then when bicyclists switch to unprotected bike lanes, they're at a slower stop sign. They're not at high speed. They don't have to deal with Florida.
Thank you for that suggestion. Yeah, that is something we will look at. I appreciate that. It's a good call out. I'm aware of that long block that is adjacent to the Howard facility.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of politics about parking, but you know, the fact that nobody actually lives there might make it a little easier. My second question is, how much actual building is going to happen here? Is this mostly just paint and signs all the way through?
For this segment, it will be striping. Yeah, so again, it's a quick build project. So that's why I'm cautiously optimistic that we can progress quickly through the design phases, and construction should be quick.
Okay, great. Yeah, and yeah, thank you again, Chris. I'll keep the floor.
Jay?
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks again, Chris, for coming tonight. And like Ben, I am a little disappointed also to not see the protected lanes. And I feel like we heard a lot about why protected lanes would be better and would be more preferred. And so, uh, I guess my question is what is better about this design other than the fact that the parking? Especially in context of some of the other projects that DDOT is working on around the city, like Arizona Avenue and some other things, it feels like we're again sacrificing safety of people using the street for other concerns. And so, you know, that I think that both sets a bad precedent as well as being, disappointing as also an 11th Street resident.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, I do think the one-way conversion and the removing, I think Ben Clemens put it very well. If we were designing the street today, there was no way we would have parking on both sides of the street and two-way traffic. It's just not wide enough to accommodate all that. I think removing one travel lane direction will improve the experience for cyclists, to give them kind of designated space, also to kind of reduce the kind of lane switching that cars are going to be doing. So it's better than the current situation. And I'm hopeful that the one-way conversion will also reduce cut through traffic, and commuter traffic as well, and make it just a quieter street for residents and people traversing through the corridor on a bike.
And actually, to that point, I wonder if DDOT would be willing to consider having the one-way section essentially switch direction in the middle. I know this is done, for example, on 8th Street up north of Piney Branch in Tacoma and Shepherd Park. And that would, help to limit the through traffic even further.
Yeah, that's something we can look at as we get into the design phase for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Johnny?
Thanks, Matt. Hey, Chris, great job. Thank you. What's your calculus in deciding whether or not to include, I know protected lanes is like the holy grail, but is it difficult to justify curbside protected bike lanes because it takes away from parking, or is there something else in your calculus? Because I feel like that might be something to consider more aggressively.
I mean, curbside protected bike lanes is kind of the standard for what, apart from like kind of sidewalk grade separated bicycle facility is kind of, the safest option for cyclists, because there's that, lane of parked cars as well as, a buffered area with vertical elements like the concrete wheel stops and flex posts. But yes, it does require width. The buffer space needs width, and unfortunately, on this narrow segment, it's a full trade-off. If we're going to do the protected bike lanes, we need to remove the parking, and this was not deemed palatable at this moment. And so our path forward on this is improving this section. And again, I'm hopeful that when we have an upgraded facility from downtown to Columbia Heights, we're going to see an explosion of usage. We already see a lot of usage, and we're trying to get better at capturing that data and sharing that data and making the story, telling the story of why these projects are so important from a safety perspective, from a user mode shift perspective. And so we're going to be eager to follow up and watch 11th Street as we get this project constructed.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Santiago?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Chris. Good to see you again. I'll share the statutory kind of share disappointment. I understand the process. I understand how things went down. Yeah, I'll leave it there. But I did have two kind of quick, one comment, one question. So in our resolutions in the past, the ANC had asked if that segment north of Florida, so between Florida and I think it's, is it Harvard or is it Clifton? I'm forgetting. But the block that just kind of spans the hill by Cardozo, that if they're possible to create sort of widen the protected lane there to allow for kind of like a passing lane, given the advent of, the popularity of bike share e-bikes and e-bikes generally, because I kind of like people get stuck in a backlog if it's kind of like as narrow there. So that was one thing. I don't know if that's something that's still up for consideration, but I would, especially because that's not RPP parking. It's not even actually zoned for anything. It's just anytime, kind of unlimited. Just something, one flag there. And then my question was about, so on Vermont, with the buffer and kind of the way it is in the proposal, is the amount is sort of like the buffered space that's taken away from like travel lane and like stuff like that. Is that different than what it would have been if the lanes had been protected? Like if you were to move that parking lane back on the outside there, like on kind of the way it was in the previous iteration of the designs, would it take away more space from the roadway? Like I know this is kind of how it is now, but I'm kind of just curious for like future reference and understanding of the road width.
Yeah, again, I'm disappointed that we're not moving forward with the protected bike lane on this project. I think I understand your question, and we could have a buffered median while also having a protected bike lane. There were other concerns that were raised that kind of caught the ear of leadership. The passage of FEMS vehicles, the need for for tour buses to kind of park and sometimes pick up drop off, and having one lane and a parking lane, and kind of not having that extra space is deemed undesirable by some. And again, I'm the way that we're going to construct or design this is to make it so that if in the future we can go and upgrade it, that we'll be able to and so we're gonna kind of look to figure out where our striping is going to occur, and proceed that way. So yeah, this is one where this is a vast improvement from what it is now, and again, hopefully it slows down speeds in the corridor and provides an enhanced facility for cyclists and for road users. But yeah, it's a disappointment that we're not getting the protected bike lane on this stretch.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually had one last question and kind of comment. The question was, do you have an idea of how DDOT is planning to handle the repaving of the block, sort of the section for 11th Street between Vermont and Florida, specifically for those of us who have used 11th, know about how the old streetcar tracks warp the pavement? And I know I want to get in as soon as possible, but also if it then ends up being warped again, then it's going to be bad for drivers and cyclists as well. And the last one was just a comment, which I'll leave you with, which is just on the Vermont aspect, when you're getting to the ends, so getting to where it connects to 11th Street, but also getting to where it connects to the Florida Avenue 9th Street cycle track, trying to figure out a little bit of those intersections there, because they're kind of dangerous, and it's a whole other thing. I think you know about this, but I just wanted to that's for the design phase to kind of look at.
For sure. Yep. Yeah, I appreciate your feedback. And I made the case, and again, I know that it's on everyone's radar, the streetcar tracks that are embedded in the street. The reality is it's very expensive per foot to remove them. It's also very expensive to, probably a little bit less so to go and repave frequently. And it's unfortunate that it leads to a less than ideal surface for road users. So we'll, as we progress through this design phase and process, I will continue to make the case that we should look to do as much as we can of removing those tracks.
But at a minimum, you'll be repaving 11th as part of it, or just striping? You'll standard repaving?
Yeah, we're going to be striping and we're going to be milling and repaving. I know, I'm not quite sure what the process is for kind of a quick build project, if there's just striping. That's a good question, and I will follow up with the committee on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say I don't have paved DC right in front of me at the moment, but that section is desperately in need of repaving and has been for a while. So
yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to repave with the striping. Okay, so that we have 2 hands from members of the public, so I want to go to them. First up is Commissioner Barrio, who represents part of this area. Francois, there you go.
Hello. Thank you for joining and explaining the decisions, Christopher. Yeah, I'm the commissioner representing 1B02, which includes the stretch of 11th, especially from Vermont Ave all the way to north of U Street. I definitely understand that there were parking concerns here, which I spoke with neighbors about, but like everyone else, I'm pretty disappointed by the fact that there won't be any protected lanes. I guess I have 2 questions. The first is, you mentioned trying to have a cohesive project, and not wanting to do a bunch of mini projects along the way, but it's sort of feeling like that's what's happening right now, where we had 11th redone south of Vermont already, and now this portion is going to be very different. And so you have, you know, protected bike lanes that then go into completely unprotected, that then go back to completely protected. So I'm curious how this decision, like why this decision makes sense given the goal that DDOT has to have a cohesive bike corridor that you can just go in a straight line and bike up and down. And then the second question I had was why DDOT decided to move forward with the work that they did on 11th Street south of Vermont before making this decision, because it just feels like that whole intersection now is very jumbled and there's a lot of sort of jogging back and forth that I thought was going to get resolved by redoing 11th, but now it's because there's going to be no protected lane, it's not going to be very cohesive.
Yeah, it presents a challenge for designing a transition between the protection and the unprotected lanes. It will be better than the existing conditions for sure when we're done. And yeah, the team that did the two intersection safety projects, wanted to improve the kind of the intersection transitions for cyclists and adding the protection through the intersection was desirable, kind of standalone from future projects. But our goal was to connect, protected bike lanes to those two intersection projects. Yeah, and I understand that from a public perspective, those two intersection projects seem like the start of this project, this 11th Street bike lane project, and it wasn't really, but obviously with the bike elements and with the the need to kind of connect these segments together, it is in effect part of this larger corridor project. Yeah, and then again, I think we want to be a little opportunistic in getting the pieces done that we can, and I think doing this segment between Q and S, between those two intersection projects, where there aren't any bus platforms to contend with, it's and there's plenty of width. That would be a big improvement right now, because it's pretty suboptimal to be in the travel lanes, also with the diagonal parking kind of aspect as well. So I hear you on kind of the unfortunate kind of reality of moving forward with unprotected concept for the northern part. The good news is, and again, hopefully we can design some smooth transitions and maybe consider certain elements where we extend the protection a little bit in order to make those transitions safer. So that's something we can look at as we proceed with design.
That'd be great. And yeah, and I think the main thing is just the sort of way that you're going diagonally when you go from that intersection of Vermont and 11th. Like you start in that protected lane and then you come over into, the middle because 11th narrows there. So maybe trying to look at, how can we reduce the amount of sort of bikes popping out into that lane of traffic? Because that is where the cars are going to be. And it just always feels kind of weird when you're on a bike and you're going not just down the road, but you're also, drifting across the width of the road. It seems that's your trouble spot. So thank you.
Yeah, hopefully it will feel safer when you're not looking over your shoulder expecting a car going northbound to
That's fair,
kind of merge in the same lane. But certainly, we definitely don't want to make it as we want to make it a smooth, gradual transition. It's not, suboptimal.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Barrio. Brad Edelman, I see your hand is raised. So you might have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. First of all, thanks, Christopher, for coming up what I think seems to me like a sensible approach to the bike lanes on Vermont Avenue and that section of 11th Street where it has to become one way. I don't think the protected bike lanes were necessary there because they're not really dangerous streets to begin with. So I think it makes sense what was decided. I guess I have two questions that I guess you don't need to answer now, but that I would like to hear an answer to at some point. First is, how does the change in one-way traffic on 11th Street, how would that affect vehicle traffic in that area? Because I mean, I know I drive through there when I'm going north from, I live at Logan Circle. By the way, I'm on the transportation committee I'm a public member of the transportation committee for ANC2F. And so I've been involved in some of that. So I would like to know what the studies are or what the thoughts are on how that change would affect traffic in the area. And then the second thing you mentioned, the parking, diagonal parking. And so at some point, maybe it's when you present to the ANC2F, I would also like to see like you said, you were going to show some sort of diagrams that show the number of spaces and everything, just to make sure that that's accurate.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just those two.
Yeah. I think, again, as we get going on the design, we'll do some kind of diversion examples of, if you live on this block, here would be your kind of route to get home, just to kind of help people understand the impacts. And, again, there are trade-offs to this, for residents that live along the corridor. And, the good news is people usually get used to changes, and hopefully it's not too inconvenient for folks. But that is something we've kind of help demonstrate what it will be like, so that people can get out ahead of planning and figuring out what their kind of commutes will look like. And yeah, we'll definitely, as we present to 2F and 2G, we'll show some kind of before and after, kind of side by side images of what some of the parking setbacks look like now with the diagonal. There does need to be some more setbacks by intersections and by driveways for diagonal parking, and we will gain some of that space back with the parallel parking. But yeah, I definitely want to demonstrate that. And I think, the concern over the loss of parking, I know, is not something that is shared by the whole community, but certainly, since we're proceeding with the concept further north that doesn't include removing one side of parking, hopefully it kind of mitigates some of the fear over losing a few spaces further down. And we'll work with the transportation committee and the ANC to review the plans and make sure we have a good configuration of commercial loading zone space where we feel deem it necessary, ADA reserve parking spots, maybe some pickup drop off spaces as well. So I know that there's a lot of parking activity and attention with the performance parking plan, the street performance parking plan. So there'll be more engagement around that.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Brad, for being here tonight. Okay, I don't see any more hands from the public or committee members. So I just want to thank Chris, you for being here tonight and presenting on here on the project. And kind of what I would want to do and suggest to the committee is that since we have a little bit of time until the NOI comes out, I think if someone would like to volunteer, and I was taking notes, so I'll share the notes, but volunteer to take a stab at a resolution or committee comments that we want to share with DDOT more formally. And this would be something, I guess, probably a resolution that the committee would present in potentially August for the full ANC to send to DDOT. Well, actually September, I guess, right? Because if we don't have the resolution now, it would be resolution that we would vote on as a committee in August, and then the full ANC would have it for the September meeting, and then that's what we would send to DDOT. Does that sound like a plan to people? Great. Do I have a volunteer who wants to take the first draft stab at this?
Sure. I can write something up.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Looks like
I think that,
Santiago.
well, Ben, you live on 11th, so I think, that's fitting. So, great. So Ben, if you want to take a stab at a draft, I'll share I took better or just longer meeting minute notes this time since there was a lot of questions and stuff. So I'll share that with you. You can write the draft and then you can share it around. Like, we can workshop it until the next meeting. So once you kind of have a draft, you can share it with the committee and then people can make additional suggestions. Great. So thanks, Chris. You don't have to stay on anymore if you don't want.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Take care. All right.
Have a good
night. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, I'm just writing that Ben graciously volunteered to write. Okay, cool. Any final comments on 11th Street? I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot in the coming months. Okay, so let's go to our second agenda item. Discussion on Harrison Recreation Center. This is something that Guneev brought up. Kind of, I think, like maybe activating the space more or just like utilizing the space better. So I'm gonna let him take it away.
Yeah, appreciate that. So Harrison Recreation Center, it's the park that's on V Street between 13th and 14th Street. If anybody needs, I can share a map real quick if folks would like that. I'll just do that anyway. 1 second. Oh, I can't share.
Oh, I think I can fix that.
I'll admit I had to look this up because I'm familiar with the little park on V Street, but I did not remember its name.
I think you can, you should be able to share your screen now. Yep.
Yes, it's been there for quite some time.
Yep. So here it is zoomed out. We'll zoom in a little. So obviously U Street's right here. 14th Street, Busboys and Poets. Folks are probably very familiar with that. So this park right here. I've heard from quite a number of folks around the area, especially the U Street Association, that has been unable to use the facilities nor the playground area for any events, be able to rent it out. Heard from a number of residents who would appreciate being able to just use it for communal events and whatnot, even to rent it out as a possibility. There has been, I want to say maybe like 2 communal events this year, but we're already into July, and I personally feel like there could be more use of it. The baseball fields, it's seldom used by Little League games, and it's often locked up, and it's just kind of sitting there. Again, be great to be able to allow folks to go there, picnic, do whatever. I think one of the concerns that we could hear from DPR is dogs. I don't know how other parks have handled it in terms of having signs that say no dogs and how that actually is able to curb that. But I think would appreciate DPR, somebody from DPR coming in and kind of discussing this item. That's really the biggest thing, and I don't have a resolution, so this will be rather short, and hopefully we can get to Julius's item as well. But I think the biggest thing would be getting someone from DPR to discuss this and potentially the other parks in the area as well.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. There is a liaison with DPR that he presented at like a full ANC meeting, but kind of just gave like a high level rundown of like sign up for summer camps. It's like that kind of like programmatic stuff. But I think it does make sense to invite him or someone similar to the committee, where we could like more pointedly ask specific questions like this, and then potentially write a resolution. If like the answer is we can never use the park, then we can write a resolution that says we want to use the park. Okay, great. Zoe, I see your hand.
Thanks. I just like I live right above it, so I just want to say that like I agree with everything you said. I hate that the baseball field's always locked up, and also there's like strips of dirt that I think could be like really great places to plant like trees or flowers or literally anything to like make it more usable and contribute to the overall like urban heat island effect remediation of the neighborhood, stuff like that. So cool. I'm excited about that.
I will try. I'll see about August. I don't know what the August agenda is yet, but we could maybe I'll reach out and see if someone can come for the August meeting. Jay?
Cool. Yeah, and just flagged for folks that I put in the chat the link for DPR's page for Harrison Recreation Center says that it is closed until further notice, but gives no indication of why. So that might also be something to ask our DPR representative when we have them.
Thank you for finding that. Okay, cool. So action item for me is to invite DPR to the August meeting. Great. So let's go to item number 3, which is the discussion on vehicle registration fees. This is an issue that Johnny has brought up. So take it away.
If you insist. This is actually something a neighbor brought up. Well, 2 technically, but one brought up that I wasn't aware of. There's a increased registration fee for vehicles that weigh more than 6,000 pounds. And Matthew sent me an article, and I was reading the article, and I thought, okay, some of that seems pretty valid. But then I was thinking about it. It's kind of aggressive. The woman who told me about it was considering buying a car for her family, an SUV or a minivan, I think. And she talked about so $500 is a lot of money for working class families. And electric vehicles weigh more generally because of the battery than internal combustion engine vehicles, which I think is counter to the EV adoption. And then I thought about it a bit more, and bringing this to the group for discussion. I think bigger vehicles are more dangerous on the road, but I think that's not I think we could focus on better infrastructure, like Vision Zero being something we could focus on in addition to that. So I've been sitting with this, and I won't say reluctantly, but I mentioned it to Matthew for a discussion because I think maybe, and the folks who don't who don't register their vehicles in DC. I'm not going to mention which states are the worst drivers because I wouldn't do that publicly, but that's another thing that's on my mind often. So I just think it's something I'd like to discuss with this group.
Great. I'm gonna call on Jay, but then I'm also pulling up the full, like the vehicle registration page, just so we can have the fee structure in front of us.
Sure. I think it was part of the 2023 budget that increased the fee from $75 to $500.
And
the vehicles.
Current pending budget proposal does actually increase it a bit further. For those very large vehicles, it actually will reduce the registration marginally for the smallest vehicles. So the first thing I will say is that in addition to the safety element of large vehicles do more harm when they hit a person or another object. They also do more damage to the road. And it's not linear. pavement damage is a bit beyond my mathematical capabilities, but it goes at the fourth power of the difference in weight. So a vehicle that is 10 times heavier does approximately 10,000 times as much damage to the pavement. And so that is actually part of what motivates the uh, increasing fees that increase more rapidly on larger vehicles, is because those much larger vehicles do much more damage. I'll also say if you can take a look at some of the you know, car specification websites. Even I think if you look at like, you know, Car and Driver magazine or something like that, um, it's not always the easiest thing to find, but it's even most SUVs that we see on the road in DC are not going to hit that 6,000 pound mark. Um, it's actually a pretty short list, and it's mostly like you know, your GMC Suburbans and the you know, long and very heavy SUVs. And lastly, kind of saw from the image that Matthew was showing briefly there, there's actually a exemption for electric vehicles, at least for the first couple of years, so that it, you know, it does take account for some of that extra weight that is specifically caused by the battery. It's still not going to bring your, you know, 9,000 pound Hummer down to the registration fee of, you know, my Honda Fit, but it does ameliorate it a little bit.
Yeah, I think for the first, a brand new battery electric passenger vehicle is $36 for the first 2 years. But then after that, it is higher.
Did they share why it's only for the first 2 years? I'm thinking of the working class. Like I don't know how many people who are blue collar buying brand new cars or brand new EVs.
It does say brand new, so that is confusing to me about, does it mean brand new to the person registering it, or does it mean it's a totally brand new car? I don't know.
Well, also, Johnny, and also you also have to consider people who have the disability vehicles where they have their van, they have to have wheelchair loaded
22.
vehicles inside of them, and they are not affording these
Yeah.
brand new vehicles, and they are considered heavy vehicles, and it is causing a substantial, that increase is hard on the pocketbook. So I just,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, that's a very good argument. And I know a lot of seniors who are suffering from this particular, this excessive increase for their family.
Thank you. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I'm just trying to bifurcate buying something that's frivolous or purely stylistic versus like ignoring the working class or families, big families that are just trying to get by.
Ben, I see your hand.
I actually did some research on this for work.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, there's a good correlation between weight and price. Heavier vehicles really are lean toward luxury vehicles, and yeah, I'm sure you can find an example. And you know, Karen makes a good point that there are specialty vehicles that might merit consideration. But yeah, generally speaking, the heavier the vehicle, the more expensive it is, and the more it's aimed at a luxury market. And yeah, as the point has been made a couple times by a couple of people here, 6,000 pounds is a lot of vehicle, even for an electric vehicle, and that's really leaning toward, yeah, these sort of Suburbans or Hummers that are kind of a lot of vehicle for a residential home, a lot more vehicle than a residential home necessarily needs. Yeah, on electric vehicles. This is just an amusement to me. I don't know. It's one of the few cases where spending more money makes you less efficient because there's such a good correlation between expensive and heavy. Yeah, electric vehicles, more expensive electric vehicles are have noticeably lower efficiency. I just thought that was kind of fun. It's off topic a little bit, but yeah, others have made similar points that I don't know if this is necessarily a tax on the average person here. It can be read as a luxury tax.
Thanks, Ben. Jay, did you have another comment?
To the issue that Karen raises, there is actually a exemption in the current fee table, and I'll post the link in a second. Vehicles that are heavier and would qualify for the higher registration classes if it is due to, as they put it, the accommodation of a disability. So, for example, a ramp van uh, is essentially a separate class and gets the lowest registration fee.
So they will have, I'm sorry, Jay, even if they have disability license plates and
It's
such.
if it's yeah, for if you have a disability tag on the vehicle and your vehicle is in a higher class due to your ramp or lift or whatever, you get a um, it's for some reason it's a special class. It's not just you get qualify as class one, but it's the same price as the class one.
Thanks for that information. I'll push that forward. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jay, for finding that out. So do we have any thoughts on this? So this is the type of thing that we could propose a resolution. Jay, didn't you say that there is current, like, there's additional
Yes.
legislation?
In the current, I believe it's the Transportation Committee report from Councilmember Allen for the current budget. There is, I believe, a new, even heavier weight class, and some of the higher classes get raised. And I believe the class one actually comes down. Currently it's 72. It would actually come down to 70. Um, and but yeah, that's in the current budget, which my understanding is the Chairman Mendelson's office is sort of assembling the prospective final budget bill this week and is expected to be coming out I think in the next week or two.
Okay, great.
They will have to pass a budget. I believe it's end of the month is the second vote, or at the very latest early August. So I don't know if it would necessarily be possible for us to get something through the full ANC before the final council vote.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be possible, but that doesn't mean if there's a desire to have a resolution on the topic, we can still do that, and then we get it to council whenever we get it to council, that's fine. And if it misses this current budget cycle, then they still have the opinion of the ANC on the record. I do see, I was not paying attention to the chat. I do see some people have put some stuff in the chat. So like a link to some of the stuff Jay was talking about, link to a list of vehicles over 6,000, and then a white paper on the damage that heavier vehicles cause to the roads, which is one of the main impetuses behind the fee structure, I believe. So yeah, do we want to work on a resolution here? What do you want to do, Johnny?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to get a sense of how people are feeling. I'm looking at, thank you, Laura, the list, and I don't see exclusively luxury vehicles. I see a lot of Nissans and Toyotas. I see a lot of what look like normal SUVs and minivans, in addition to Bentleys. Uh,
And I placed something in the chat, Johnny, just in case if you're going to write a resolution that will make sure that it's clear about any modifications, modified vehicles for the medical necessity, as well
okay.
as working on waivers for low income families and anything that that is needed that's going to impact the disability community. You know, I put all that information in the chat. If you can just you can grab that, and if you're going to do any type of resolution, I think
Okay.
helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll work on a resolution, a draft that we can.
Okay.
I'll send it to you, Matthew. I'll think about it. Something that makes sense. Like even I don't understand what new car means on that website.
It's a little ambiguous. Okay, yeah. So if
Okay.
Johnny, you want to kind of like take the conversation, sit with it, look at the information that people have sent, and then if
Yeah.
draft something and share it around, and similar to the bike lane resolution, you can send it to me or send it to the whole group, whatever you think, however you feel, and then people can kind of look at it, and maybe it's on the agenda for August.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks everyone. This was helpful. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for bringing it up. Okay. So this next one, next item should be quick, I think. It is a notice of intent 25-179-TPA installation of reserved residential parking space for a disabled resident at 2021 Vermont Avenue Northwest. It's so kind of for residents that qualify, that have a placard for their vehicle, they can request from DDOT to install space. It's the DDOT director may reserve one on-street parking space for any district resident who applies in writing for reserved space and who qualifies under a section 2710.1. So DDOT approved this on-street parking space, but because it's a change to the regular RPP parking, they have to issue an NOI. This is the block north of U Street on Vermont, and it's towards the end of the block, kind of near the gas station. If people know where the gas station is, as Vermont kind of snakes over to 9th, I think. Yeah. So I kind of just think like we could just have a letter of support, like not even a resolution, right? I think from my opinion, it's just like there's an NOI, they ask us to comment on it. I think it's better to comment than not to comment. So then we could just say the ANC supports it, or the committee supports it, and then ask the ANC to send essentially a letter that just says we approve or we agree. Karen?
Well, I definitely would make a motion to support any type of opportunity for someone to have the disability parking. And I also, if we do a resolution to any sort, I really think that people who live in multifamily homes need to have the opportunity to receive disability parking, because unfortunately DC law discriminates against people who live in multifamily homes and buildings from getting disability parking that's needed. And I brought this forward during our last term Santiago, I know that you recall this because this is the drum I'm always beating. So I'm always for this, but I make a motion if everyone's on board with that.
Second.
Thanks. Ben, was that you?
I seconded it.
Okay.
That was me.
No, somebody seconded it before me.
I'll just add the context to what Karen said. Is we did pass a resolution kind of on this, just super quick, which was asking that DDOT implement also a sort of reserved ADA spaces that weren't just for this RDPP program, which has a much like higher threshold for individuals to access. They purportedly did a pilot in LaDroit Park. I don't know what happened with that, but I think that's something we should follow up on, and we should follow up on what Karen was mentioning too, because I think it's a really good idea.
Okay, cool. So that can be an action item out of this, in addition to the simple letter of support. We can follow up on the LaDroit Park pilot, right?
And W Street as well.
W Street?
Yep.
Okay. W Street pilots for multifamily disabled parking. Okay, cool. And then so I guess we can follow up on those pilots, and then if further a new resolution or further engagement on the topic is necessary, we can do that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I guess let's vote. All those in favor of sending a letter of support for the NOI, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Anyone abstaining? Great. Motion passes. The ANC will ask the ANC to send a letter of support. Okay, so it is 8:20. Julius, do you think we have time to properly discuss your resolution? I'm fine with it if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, I think so. And if I don't think it's too crazy. We will see. So this is something I worked on with or Councilman Barrio, who's actually a very good friend of mine. I call him Francois. He brought to my attention, and this was regarding the speed bumps in, many of us have been on a bike and gone over a speed bump, and it is kind of an inconvenience for cyclists. You have to slow down. It just takes you out of the biking flow state. So I did some research on, what other cities have done to address this, and Portland, Oregon has implemented what they call speed cushions, which are essentially the same thing, except they have little channels built in them to allow cyclists to pass through without having to go over this, this impression on the road. So I don't know if you want me to share like the resolution I wrote. Basically, the long and short of it was, DC has about 269 speed bumps in the. I can share it. Hang on. As I'm doing this, DC has about 269 speed bumps in the city. That was data was accurate as of 2023. I think that number is quite a bit higher now. I just looked at the map, and I know there's like several locations where there are speed bumps that are not represented on the DC speed bump map. And again, all of them are these speed bumps. Some of them, like on our street, are like, there's a lot of them in quick succession. And, this is obviously important for slowing vehicles in residential areas, and doing all that. But it does also like kind of inconvenience cyclists. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Sorry, bear with me here.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very nervous. My whole life. Okay. It's telling me I'm gonna have to quit, but I'll just drop the link in the chat, and you guys can
Yeah, if you drop the link, maybe I can share it.
Yeah. So Portland implemented these back in 2020, and they just started installing these new speed bumps with the channels. They call them speed cushions. They were very well received by cyclists. They did some surveys, both just surveying cyclists, and the vast majority, about 80%, said that they used the speed cushions. Here, let me make that open.
Yeah, I just requested access.
Okay. I think everyone should have access now. Sweet. They found the vast majority of cyclists were in favor of this. They liked them. This was both, self-reported data and kind of field observations. This again, the idea here is it's just making the city more friendly and accessible to cyclists, especially cyclists who might not be as experienced with city biking. Having these speed bumps just adds another obstacle, another distraction, which can cause issues, take you out of that flow state. I'm using that a lot. So the idea of this was we were going to ask um, and the ANC, or to urge DDOT to at least look at or investigate, do some kind of study about the practicality of implementing these, both for new speed bumps they put in, but also potentially for amending the current speed bumps that are all over the city. The ones they did in Portland were about $2,000 for a regular speed bump, and the speed cushion was about $4,000. That was for the Portland actual city teams, and then it was the same price for contractors. They both cost about 7,000. So I don't think this would be cost prohibitive. I don't know, how it would be different for us versus for DC versus Portland. But again, just in the interest of making the city more friendly to cyclists, easier for cyclists who don't, who might be mulling the idea of biking more. I thought this would be a good idea for DDOT to investigate. So I don't know if anyone has any initial questions, but that's where I came down.
And I see you've already got in there the thing that I was going to point out, that these tend to also be better for emergency vehicles, especially fire trucks and ambulances, and also potentially buses, which frankly is often a reason that speed humps are not installed in a given street where they would otherwise be considered needed, because of concerns for emergency vehicle or transit use. So I'm uh did I mishear you that they're like twice as expensive? Because that seems strange to me, but
That was what the report I read was. I'm not, I think it would be something worth investigating. It was twice as expensive for the city teams. I don't know if it was because they had to divide, they basically had to build three little speed bumps instead of one large speed bump, and that is for whatever reason. I'm not a civil engineer, just more expensive. But that was what the report I read said.
hmm.
Great. So my internet's being slow, so I turn off my video. There's a couple of these in Arlington, I know. It's not consistent. I think they experimented with it in a couple locations, and then but haven't really installed asphalt speed humps in like a decade. So they're all kind of new ones at new locations that they'll replace them in kind. But if they're repaving the road, but uh, so I don't know why there's like a couple in Arlington, but like not kind of widespread. But yeah, I think good job on the resolution. I think there's some good background in there, and then resolved statements are, I think good too, right? Because we're just like, we're recommending DDOT conduct a study of converting existing speed bumps into these bike-friendly ones, recommending DDOT investigate the practicality of installing the speed cushions instead of the regular speed bumps, and then urging DDOT to prioritize experimenting with bike-friendly speed cushions on major bike corridors, which I think, that makes sense too. Like maybe if they were going to roll this out, those type of locations is where they would put them first, as opposed to on a side street that has speeding problems but not as many bikes, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, oh, Karen, I see your hand.
Yes, and it's just a brief question, just I just need you to educate me a little bit. There is a type of, it's not a speed bump. It's on the bike lanes. I thought that it's sort of flat. It's a flat panel type of thing that is used, and I'm wondering, is that an example of a speed cushion, or do we already have some of those things already in place here in Washington, D.C.? I know you were using Portland, but
If you're talking about what I think you're talking about, these are like sometimes a bike lane, it'll be on the cement and then it'll go up onto like a platform, but it's like in the bike lane.
yes, exactly. And but it looks more like it has like these little nodules on it, but it changes. It's like it's not it's not the humps like you see with for the cars, but it goes in a slight incline, and then they come up off of it. I've seen them, but I just want to know if that's the same thing that you're talking about.
It is not the same thing. Those are for easier access to buses. So those are areas where there's there's a bike lane in between the curb and like there's a bus stop and there's a bike lane going through that, and it's for easier access to buses for people who might not want to step down off the curb. They're older, they're disabled, something like that. So those are like specifically in on bike lanes where there is also a bus stop. Whereas these are in the road, where there's like a speed bump for cars, but and there might not be a dedicated bike lane there. It's on a residential street. It's just where cyclists are going over, if that makes sense.
And
There,
thank you for the visual. That did help me a little bit. And yes, I was just thinking that those were similar to what you were discussing. And since we had something like that already in place, and if that could also be a help, that type of design.
Hmm. I don't think for this particular problem it would be the most effective, but I'm also open if people feel differently.
I think for some, yeah, bus stop and some areas where there is essentially conflict between uh bicycle traffic and pedestrians needing to cross, whether it's to a bus or for whatever other reason. We do have what are essentially speed humps for bike lanes in a couple of places, although I'm having off the top of my head, I can't think of any that isn't integrated with a bus stop island like you were talking about. But I believe we do have a couple. Um,
Yeah, you're answering my question or Julia's question?
I think I'm trying to visualize what you were asking about. I think that like Julia said, it's probably not quite solving the same issue. But we do have, I think I do know what you were talking about.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking what I'm talking about. I know what Julius is referring to for the disability um access to the bus. This I've seen, I believe, down near Carnegie Library, and it wasn't anything in regards to disability access, but it was something that was in the street. And then I also saw it, I believe, somewhere off of Michigan Avenue. But again, I'll just double check and I'll take a photo of it and I'll give that to you guys. But there is something like that is happening in the bike lanes in DC. But of course, I guess only DDOT can really speak to how they have, what other types of systems they've been implementing. I wouldn't really know the name of it.
Okay, yeah, it'd be good to know about that. If that is different than the like curb extensions that we're talking about.
Great. So good discussion. How do people?
That's right, Nicole.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to look up a photo of the thing. I believe that's what
That's
you were
it.
both trying to describe, but I wanted the
That's
visual
it.
to like
That's it.
confirm.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
exactly
bus
what it
stop
was.
island.
Yes.
But I've seen it not at bus stops. I've seen it in the middle of it's
Yeah,
along a bike lane, and it wasn't at a bus stop too. I've seen
that's
something similar.
entirely possible. DC uses these modular plastic blocks basically to build those to test them out in different places so they've been moved to different bus stops and potentially other intersection conflict areas through the city. I don't know, like, I don't have an exhaustive list of where they've been used, but yeah, this specific one, this one's basically like super heavy duty plastic Legos that they install where needed. And then if it works well, they can put up something permanent there and then move it somewhere else. So it's totally possible that we've all seen them in different places.
But that's exactly what I was referring to. And so, Julius, is this similar to what you're interested in? Or you're basically trying to, and as Jay said, it's speed humps. You're trying to use something that sort of helps with the traffic calming as well as assist the bikers.
Yeah. So what I'm suggesting or the proposal is for the like kind of cement humps we see, there's one on Westminster, for example, where there's not like a dedicated bike lane. It's just a road and they have there's usually on smaller residential streets, like the modular plastic things are usually on larger streets. Um, there's one on Florida Ave that right by the Whole Foods, and that's only like cyclists will only ever go over that. Whereas the speed bumps are that affects both cyclists and automobiles. So the proposal is that we create these channels in the speed hump, not bump, so that cyclists can go through without having to go up and over and slow down. It just means they can continue biking at the same speed they're biking at, without having to go up over this hump.
So the difference between the kind of plastic feature is something that runs completely parallel to the curb in the bike lane or next to the bike lane, and the speed humps we're talking about run completely perpendicular curb to curb. But if we have these channelized notches in them, not only could bikes pass through, but emergency vehicles or transit vehicles with that wider wheelbase could also use them if needed to either avoid the bump or to like maneuver in traffic.
Exactly. Thank you.
Great. So, how do we feel about the resolution? Do we want to vote on it? Does someone want to make a motion?
I personally would suggest that we do a little bit more homework to make sure, Julius, and I think what you're offering is great, but I think that based on just this conversation alone, we may need to look at some additional options that could work within the community. That's just my thoughts. Or if you want to add more to it with some alternative suggestions.
Okay.
Um,
Could I ask Do you think you could find something that's cheaper? Because that 4,000 seems.
I mean,
Seems like
yeah, that's part of why I'd like DDOT to do this or to investigate this, because
Okay.
this was the only that was just the number that was quoted in this study. So I'd like someone to, with more expertise to look at this and find out, is it practical? Could they do it for less? Again, what they were doing was actually installing these completely new already with the channels. A big part of this resolution would be looking at if you could just install the channels and speed bumps that already and speed humps that already exist, which I think could be a much lower cost.
Okay.
So in essence, are you just telling them to modify what they already have on the street by just carving the channels in and that's it?
That would be like the first part of the resolution. Yes.
Understanding of this resolution is we're mostly asking DDOT to investigate this and determine if it's feasible, and then if it's feasible, to figure out where they could implement it.
Precisely.
So if it is, if it turns out that it is as expensive as, we might fear, that would be different than if there are cheaper workarounds. Or I haven't done any research on it, but whether Portland's amortized in the cost to buy a completely new mold, do some of the like fixed capital costs of like creating a new feature in that. But yeah, someone from the maintenance division of DDOT should be able to kind of give that a real gut check.
Yeah.
Yeah, the resolution doesn't yeah, I think it's important to remember that the resolution is kind of asking DDOT to consider this, to study this, to look into it. They have the money, they have the expertise to do these things, and we just have to ask them to do stuff. So if they look into it, if they see this and say, oh, we're not going to do the bike friendly bumps for X, Y, and Z, well, then they'll respond to us and say that. Like us asking them with this resolution requires them to give us feedback to us too, right? So they'll have to send a response to this letter. And if to Johnny's point, it's too expensive, or to Karen's point that something else in the community might work better, they'll send that back to us. So we'll know. So I think like sending the resolution doesn't hurt as is.
No, I didn't want to take away from Julius what he's done, because I know he clarified what the issues are and what he wanted to, and what we need to have covered. And I think that those are all reasonable. I just was thinking along the lines that, are we using resources and alternatives that DC already has in place that could be worked within his plan? And that's what I wanted him to just see if he could add that to his resolution, as additional alternatives, if possible. But I certainly am for the resolution. So just to clarify that point, Julius. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Karen. Okay. Is it Julius? You can make the motion to pass this if you want.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to pass it.
I second that.
Okay, so I heard Zoe first, I think. So, okay, Julius made the motion to pass the resolution as written, to ask DDOT to study the feasibility of the bike-friendly bumps, converting, but also installing new ones, converting existing one and installing new ones, and then to prioritize their implementation on the major bike corridors as identified by the bike plan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Great. Motion passes. We'll have this on the August agenda for the ANC to consider. So does anyone have anything else tonight? If not, then we can conclude at 8:41 p.m. Thanks for being here tonight. I think this was a good meeting. I think we had a lot of good discussions. Committee members brought stuff. I love that. DDOT presented. Oh, just real quick, I will be out of town from the 11th to like the 26th.
Unacceptable.
I'll be in Spain, so I won't even see your emails if you send them. So, everybody have a good 2 weeks, and I'll see you when I get back.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Good
man.
night.